Going on, guys? It's Sloppy Saturdays back here with another video, and today we are going over something a little different than our usual content. We usually do player analysis, team reviews, reactions. This time it's going to be College Football 26, the new game. The cover is released, the date is released. Early release is June 7th, standard release is June 10th. The cover is really what got people hyped about this game so far. We're going to be talking about the improvements in this game, comparing both covers, how I liked last year. We are going to go into everything. So let's get right into it. This year's cover compared to last year's cover after the fact, I feel like got a lot of hate, but at the time, everybody was initially hyped. Now, I was completely hyped for the College Football 25 game. Again, I think that's going to go probably on my Mount Rushmore of sports games just because of the anticipation for this game. We're talking about like an over 11 years since the last college football game, and it was super hard to get, the rights for everything, but NIL made it a little bit easier. When we look at the cover from last year, I think it was absolutely nostalgic. Now, this year's is a little different because this year you got all the people actually together for the big cover, where last year it was like an animated cover. And the reason why last year's cover I feel like got a lot of hate is because how the players turned out with the three cover athletes they selected. But I think they really did a good job selecting those athletes. First off, you had the Heisman Trophy winner in hindsight, Travis Hunter. Again, an awesome pick. You can't hate on that pick. He was the best player in college football, and they basically predicted it in their cover. And then Quinn Ewers, I don't mind that pick at all. When you look at Quinn Ewers, him as a prospect, him as a storied college football quarterback, again, he had a great college football career. Was he one of the best players in college football last year? I don't think so. Again, did he have an underwhelming year? Of course. But when you look at Quinn Ewers, how he came in as a prospect, Ohio State transferred to Texas, had a hand in bringing Texas back. I thought he was a good college player to put on that cover. And then the last person everybody obviously hates on is Donovan Edwards. When you look at Quinn Ewers, like I mentioned, he was a 7th-round pick. When you look at Donovan Edwards, he was undrafted. But again, the cover isn't about who pans out in the NFL. It's about college football and what they meant to college football. And they were obviously going to put one player from the national championship team on that cover. And it was tough. Michigan had a lot of turnover going into the year. Obviously, we sort of used drop-off. They didn't make the college football playoffs. They weren't even really a contender in the Big Ten after winning a national championship. And Donovan Edwards was the player they chose. Again, he had a very disappointing year. Obviously, Khalil Mullins broke out for them. But when you look at Donovan Edwards, he had multiple touchdowns in that championship run in the playoffs. And they had to put a player that was returning in the cover. And I guess they didn't want to go defensive. Like, you would have put Mason Graham on that cover, a defensive end in the moment. I don't think people would have been as excited. Kenneth Grant, a defensive tackle, though the people would have been as excited. The one person I thought they could have put on instead of Donovan Edwards, he would have put on Will Johnson. Again, he was always a storied prospect. He was one of the best cornerbacks in college football all year last year. Slid a little bit in the draft, but again, wouldn't have been a bad choice there. But I absolutely love the College Football 25 cover. Nothing will make me hate it. Again, how those players panned out means nothing to me. It's the reason they were put on the cover. Quinn Ewers, such a storied career, such a big prospect in high school. Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner. And you talk about Donovan Edwards, part of that national championship team. They all meant something very different to that cover, and I like the diversity in that cover. And then when you go into that cover with the animated version, all the people behind it, I think they added almost everybody that was important to college football that year. I absolutely love that cover. Nothing will make me hate it. Now, I think it was animated because, again, College Football 25, not that it was rushed. They had a lot of things to take care of. Again, there was no base game. They basically had to start from scratch. When people were talking about College Football 25 going into the game, everybody was just worried it was going to be a Madden reskin, and that's not what it was at all. When you talk about the gameplay was very different from the tackling, more realistic to college football. Again, not like Madden where you square anybody up, it's an automatic tackle. Wasn't like that. The plays were very different. I think the playbooks were a lot smaller, which we're going to talk about. They're going to be expanding the playbooks. And then the presentation was completely different. And I think that's what they should just keep on focusing. When you talk about college football, the differences between stadiums, the traditions, that's what makes college football, in my opinion, better than the NFL. Again, college football is my favorite sport. But even if you don't think it's better than the NFL, that's what separates it. That's what makes it different. The traditions between different schools, the chants, the differences in stadiums, where each stadium is located. All that stuff goes into the presentation. And I thought they absolutely killed it last year. And that's what made it so different from Madden. Going into each stadium, going into Penn State, here in the Mo Bamba, here in the Stadium Pulse, Kyle Field, Texas A&M, the loudest stadium in the country, playing there with the Stadium Pulse. That's what made everything so different. This game was so far from a Madden reskin, and I think on the first year of the game, technically since the relaunch, I think they did a phenomenal job last year. And I think this year's going to be even better because now they have that base in the game to improve on. Now, let's go over to cover this year. The cover this year is absolutely insane. I'm not going to lie to you. From a cover standpoint, how it looks, it is better than the 25 cover, like it just is. But the 25 cover will always have nostalgia for me. Again, we're talking about the anticipation for that game. Me and my friends 2 weeks out looking at the loading screen saying, in a week, we're going to play this game. Like, we were so anticipated for that game. One of the first weekends this game was out, we played for like 7 hours straight on a Friday night. Crazy. So nothing's going to take away from that 25 cover for me. I'm a big nostalgia guy. But when you look at the cover side by side, the 26 one, like I said, is obviously better in my opinion. The first thing that makes it better, when you look at the big cover, it's because they got everybody in the same room together. This is a real life cover. I think they incorporated everything. When you look at the animated cover last year, it's really just players, where this year they had everything. They had alumni. Look at the alumni they have. They have Reggie Bush. They have Tim Tebow. They have Desmond Howard. Like, you're taking players that were legends, absolute legends, the best players of the 2000s you have on this cover. Did I say Desmond Howard? I meant Denard Robinson. And then you also, in the back of the cover, you have the mascots. You have coaches in this cover. You have fans in the background of this cover. Like, you incorporated everything possible in this cover while in front and center having the best players. The only person that isn't on this cover that, again, he has been known to not do these type of things. When we looked at College Football 25 last year, it was tough for him to get his rights. Is Arch Manning. That's the only person I feel like is left out of this cover. When you look at front and center, the cover athletes, Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, who we're going to get into, I don't think you could have put two better players on the cover. Them three with Arch, again, like, those were the three guys that I think are the face of college football. You go Nick Singleton, Jeremiah Love in the back. You look at the two best running backs in college football going in next year. You have the young guys. You got Bryce Underwood. You got DJ Lagway, the anticipated guys. Then in the back, you also have Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, two of the guys that are going to be elite college quarterbacks going into the season. Caleb Downs, arguably the best player in college football. Like, they covered all aspects. And I love how they got all these guys in the same room. You see videos of Ryan Williams breaking, Jeremiah Smith's balls, Bryce Underwood's balls, telling them they suck. Like, I love that you were able to have all these guys in the same room and bond. I think it's really cool. And I think when you look back maybe 10, 15 years in the NFL, when some of these guys are stars, you're going to look back when they were like 18, 19 years old on the college football cover, bantering. Like, I think this was such a cool idea. And I think it's really credit to these guys. Again, I don't know what the deals were for this, but credit to these guys for all caring enough about the sport of college football, being in the same room for this cover. I absolutely love it. Now, we're going to talk about Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith being the cover athletes. I don't think you could have put two better people as the face of college football on the cover of this game. And when you look at the two, it's going to even enhance their rivalry of who's a better receiver. Again, right now everybody's going Jeremiah Smith, no doubt. But Ryan Williams has a ton of potential. Again, we're talking about a younger 17-year-old. He had a huge game against Georgia. He took over college football in the beginning. I don't think the situations were fair. When you look at Jeremiah Smith on an absolutely loaded Ohio State team, obviously helped him a little bit. When you look at Alabama's inconsistent passing game, they didn't do any favors for Ryan Williams. But again, these guys are always going to be compared side by side. And when you look at the face of college football, these are the two guys. Now, the only issue I have with it is now you can't use them next year. So you really got to hope somebody, which somebody will, comes up on the rise enough to use them in next game as the cover athletes, because you're not going to use the two players back-to-back years. And Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith have another year left. So it's going to be interesting who they choose this year, because last year they chose three people that were going to go into the NFL draft. So I thought they were going to use a similar model this year. so they could kind of save themselves. But they took a risk with Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith. Again, you could argue the two most popular players in college football on this cover, but it's going to be interesting who they choose next year. That goes over the cover. I absolutely love the cover athletes, obviously. And then the cover itself, so cool. I think you were able to get alumni, coaches, and players all on this cover. Shows how much everybody cares about just increasing the popularity of college football, getting them all on the cover. I absolutely love it. Now we're going to go over the game and the improvements they have. The first thing I want to go over is all the presentation features. Like I said, presentation is so key for this game. It's what really separates it from Madden. Me and my friends talk about it because we visit college stadiums, we visit pro stadiums for football. The college stadiums and the pro stadiums don't even compare. When we go to a college football stadium, we use a pro stadium as an add-on to the trip for the state, just to, while we're there, see it. But we go for the college stadiums, the tradition, the stadium sounds, the differences in states. Like, everything is so different in college football, where in a pro stadium, they don't differentiate as much stadium to stadium, in my opinion, at least. Now, let's get into the differences. The first thing is going to be new stadium light shows. I saw this, the side-by-side, even though I thought last year's presentation was great. I think it was Knoxville, Tennessee, the difference in the stadium light show from 25 to 26, completely different. The graphic completely improved for that and the presentation. Then you go game day, midday turns to dark. I absolutely love this. Brings a realistic aspect to the game. When you talk about having a midday game, it eventually turns to dark. And I think that's pretty cool in like the third quarter, say. Now it's a night game. I think that's realistic. I think that's what they should be doing. 160 new school-specific chants. I'm surprised they added 160 new schools. Maybe it's the small stadiums. Like I said, I've traveled to stadiums. I've been to Penn State, Ohio State, North Carolina, a bunch of different college schools. And when I talked about this originally in the 25 game, like, Penn State was exactly the same to me as being there. Ohio State was pretty much exactly the same being there in the game as well. So adding 160 new chants, it should get even more realistic. Touchdown light shows, again, presentation is key. Separating this from Madden. Touchdown light shows will definitely do that. And an enhanced stadium pulse. I don't know how more enhanced it could get, because when I was at Penn State, when I was at Kyle Field as an away team or an away player, it was super tough to play in, but I think it should be enhanced even more. I mentioned to you guys time and time again, I was at the first college football playoff game at Penn State against SMU. It seemed like SMU had no shot due to how rocking that stadium was. So I guess enhanced stadium pulse, let's enhance it even more. Then you go into high school is going to be added to Road to Glory. I think this is an absolute necessity. I think you should be starting out in high school, then going to college. I thought it would be cool if you could take your college player and bring them to Madden and just go across their whole football career. Again, maybe they'll add that one day. Who knows? EA makes bowl games, so it is possible. But high school, definitely the step before college is necessary. I heard when you're choosing the schools, you're allowed to like throw a cap in the air as well, which is pretty cool. 300 real coaches, that's a huge thing. Obviously, we saw coaches on the cover for the first time. 300 real coaches. Coaches weren't even in the game really last year. So getting their rights was absolutely a necessity. When you talk about Ultimate Team, when you talk about quick games, even when you talk about Dynasty, everything, you need the real coaches in the game. 2,700 new plays. This is the biggest thing. I absolutely love this. I was talking about this with my friends all year. I feel like I was using the same exact plays over and over again. I feel like the playbook was so small for every team. 2,700 new plays will definitely change that. Expand the portal. They should be factoring in the portal as well as the biggest thing that separates them from Madden. When you look at the transfer portal, it just keeps getting bigger and better every year. In real life, they should enhance that in the game. And then cross-play Dynasty, it might be huge for you guys. It's not a big deal for me. All my friends have the same console, but cross-play Dynasty, if you want to play with your friends on Xbox, if you have PS5, if you want to play on PS5, if you have Xbox, those are going to be the big changes. Like I said, I am super excited for this game. This was a different type of video for you guys, but I'm a huge college football gaming fan. And I think from 25 to 26, the game is just going to get better. Like we said, all the new features. The cover even looks a lot better. You have the two prodigies, Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, on the cover. There should be no complaints from anybody. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays.